Hey everybody, gather around, because I want to tell you why principles are fun. Here we go! Just kidding, I'm not going to rap about principles. I would not subject you to that kind of torture. This is just going to be a normal video, but it is going to be about principles. And I wanted to talk about this today because I've just been giving a lot of thought about the benefits of having principles and how they can just help you navigate life. At least that has been the case for me. I have discovered that if you have strong, well-defined principles, navigating life becomes much easier. So if you're looking for ways to make your life easier, keep watching. Well, first of all, what are principles? Let's look at the definition from the dictionary. It says, a principle is a fundamental truth or proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of belief or behavior or for a chain of reasoning. So a principle is a fundamental truth, but principles can vary from person to person based on their upbringing, their philosophy of life, and many other factors. So there is such a thing as having the wrong principles. For example, one person believes that happiness is the most important thing in life, but there's another person that thinks family is the most important thing in life. Well, these two people are going to approach life and decision making very differently. The first person is going to prioritize their happiness, and the second person is going to prioritize the needs and the wants of their family over their own happiness. And by the way, there is a world in which you can prioritize your happiness and your family's needs at the same time, but that's going to be a conversation for another time. Now, how can principles help you in life? Well, I think principles can be very useful tools to have when presented with difficult situations. For example, let's say you are in a romantic relationship and you believe that mutual respect is imperative for a good relationship, but your boyfriend yells at you and makes fun of your opinions. Well, if you think about that principle that you stand for regarding relationships, that mutual respect is important or imperative for a good relationship, then you can think about that principle and see if this relationship is good for you or not. Maybe you're like super in love with a guy, but the reality is that he doesn't measure up to your principles. In that case, you know you have to do something about it. All right, I want to do another example about personal relationships, but I'm gonna leave that for the end of the video. For now, let's talk about something else. I think one of the best things about having strong principles is that they can help you identify errors in your thinking. And they can even make you rethink some of your strongest beliefs that might actually be detrimental to your life. For example, let's say that you believe that private property should be respected, but you are also someone who supports larger taxes on the wealthy. Well, in that case, you can take a pause and think about those two things and how they are contradicting each other. And perhaps you come to realize that you don't actually believe in that principle as much as you thought you do. Perhaps you don't actually have that much respect for private property. But on the other hand, maybe you do come to realize that that principle is really important to you. And if that principle about respecting private property is very important to you, then you need to reevaluate your stand on taxes. Okay, another example. Perhaps you are someone who believes that everything in life has a scientific explanation, but you are also someone who happens to believe in Odin, the god of the Vikings. Well, in that case, you need to look at those two beliefs, your principle and your belief in Odin, and see if they align with each other or if they contradict each other. In this case, they obviously contradict each other. So you have some thinking to do. Do you really believe that everything has a scientific explanation? Because if you do, you need to reevaluate your belief in Odin, the god of the Vikings. But if it's the other way around, that you really believe in Odin, the god of the Vikings, despite there being any evidence about his existence, then you need to reevaluate your principle, because maybe you don't believe that everything has a scientific explanation. Now, perhaps you're in a situation that you don't really know what your principles are. Well, in that case, you can take a look at your view on certain things and work backwards from that to realize what your principles are. For instance, you agree that the government is right to shut down all restaurants during the pandemic. Well, if that's the case, you can work backwards from that and think about whether you agree or not with the principle that the government should tell people what they can and cannot do. Because if you agree with that principle, you also believe that the government has the right to tell you what you can and can't do, not just what other people can and can't do. In that case, you have to do some thinking and decide whether or not that is a principle you agree with. All right, I promised I would give another example about how principles can help you improve your personal relationships, specifically your romantic relationships. So here it goes. Perhaps you believe that showing affection is imperative for a good relationship, but your girlfriend hardly ever kisses you or hugs you, and that makes you sad. Well, if you think about that principle of affection and how important it is for you, you can choose to do something about it. Choose to do something about your problem to get the type of relationship you want. And that doesn't mean to immediately go and break up with your girlfriend, but standing up for your principles can give you the courage to communicate your needs. For example, in this case, you can go to your girlfriend and say the following. Hey, I have noticed that you barely ever kiss me or hug me, and affection is really important to me. I want to know if this is something we can work on. By communicating your needs, you're gonna get a step closer to discovering the truth and getting the type of life you want. Because for instance, your girlfriend can come back to you and say, oh, you know what? You're right. I actually never kiss you or hug you because I didn't want you to feel smothered. But now that I know how you feel, I will reciprocate your level of affection. And in this case, your problem is solved. Or perhaps she comes back to you and says, actually don't care how you feel and I don't really want to be affectionate at all. Well, in this case, you have some thinking to do now that you know how she feels about it, and decide whether or not this is a person you want to keep in your life. Having strong principles can help us stand up for ourselves and to communicate our needs, which in turn can help us get a step closer to the type of life we want to have and the type of relationships we want to have. And of course, this wouldn't be the Millennial Rand Fan channel if I didn't give you Ayn Rand's definition on principles. So here it goes. A principle is a fundamental, primary, or general truth on which other truths depend. Thus, a principle is an abstraction which subsumes a great number of concretes. It is only by means of principles that one can set one's long-range goals and evaluate the concrete alternatives of any given moment. It is only principles that enable man to plan his future and to achieve it. Let's read that again. It is only principles that enable a man to plan his future and to achieve it. So if you have the wrong principles or destructive principles, you're going to end up with a bad future. So really think about what you stand for and what kind of life you want to have. In conclusion, I just think that principles are very important tools to have because they're gonna help you navigate your way through life. So if you don't know what your principles are, you should really spend some time thinking about that and trying to figure out what you stand for. Anyways, that is it for today. I actually struggled a bit when I was planning this video because coming up with examples of good principles, it's kind of hard. Like, it can be confusing. Like, is this a principle or is this just a personal life rule? The line is a little blurry in my opinion, but do your best. Anyways, that is it for today. There will be another video soon, so stay tuned and thank you for watching.